What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, brought to you by the Wager Fund. Along with my co-host, J.D. Sharp, I am Mr. Brian Shapiro. And, oh, my gosh, we have the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I cannot believe I'm saying that, J.D. I'm excited, man. What do you think?
It's unheard of. This is amazing. Inaugural year, Vegas Golden Knights, a hockey team in a desert city playing an ice sport. And they make the Stanley Cup, and that's crazy.
You could make the argument now this could be the best story in sports history. But I mean, if they win the cup, I don't think there's any debating that. So we got a very special guest on the line right now. He's not a bad poker player. He's a decent. I think that's fair to say. He's a decent poker player, 6-time World Series of Poker champion. But who cares about that? Because I brought Daniel Negreanu on the show today because we're going to talk some Vegas Knights hockey because my man's been with this team since day one. Daniel, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and, maybe I'm a decent poker player, probably better than you, but lately I've been a better hockey prognosticator in terms of the final score, so maybe there's a career there for me.
You're right about that. I'm watching the NBC broadcast today, as obviously you were, and all of a sudden they put a picture of you up. I'm like, oh, that's Daniel Negreanu. We're having him on the show today. And then they're saying how lucky you are because you're picking the exact scores of these games. And by the way, you picked 3-1 today. It should have been 3-1 if you count the empty netter. I'm sure you were thinking about that.
Well, actually, what I wrote in my tweet was I picked 3-1 with a 25% chance of it being an empty netter, and I had texted a few friends feeling like it was going to be a tight-checking, closer game, 1-1 maybe late, and then 2-1, and then maybe an empty netter. So I don't feel bad about my procrastination, whatever you call that word, despite the fact that I was off by an empty netter. So I feel good about the fact that I hit 2 in a row, and then the third one was close, and feel good about that going into the finals.
So Start me. Obviously, you've been a big hockey fan your whole life from Canada. What team did you grow up watching? What team were you a fan of?
Well, I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, so obviously I bled blue and white for many, many years, and then at some point I got disenfranchised with the whole team when really it happened when they traded Tuukka Rask to Boston. That one really upset me, and I thought that they were making big mistakes, and I sort of had a ugly taste in my mouth for them. Brandon Shanahan has done a great job of turning that team around, but being here in Las Vegas for 20 years and going to all the games, there's no question that the team that I'm most near and dear to is the Golden Knights.
Brendan Shanahan, former Hartford Whaler, by the way. I was a Hartford Whaler season ticket holder. So like you, I truly appreciate, and JD, I know you feel the same way, truly appreciate what this team has done and how rare what it is we're seeing. It's like a 30 for 30 in the making. But do you get the sense, Daniel, because you're a season ticket holder, that a lot of these fans might not truly understand what is actually taking place here, how rare it is, what we're seeing before our very eyes?
I'd say yes and no. I think Las Vegas has been a sports town even before we had professional sports. And I think that, obviously this group of fans is spoiled in that we didn't go through 10 to 15 years of struggle before, a team was able to make it to the Stanley Cup final. I mean, I've been a Leaf fan since I was a kid, and they never did it once. But having said that, I think the majority of people in here are pretty educated sports fans. I remember during the exhibition games having to explain to people what icing was, what a penalty was, what a power play was. Mm-hmm. And, probably 10, 15 games in, this city has totally jumped on, this sort of journey with an epic thing. And I wonder, obviously, if the team doesn't do well 2-3 years down the road, that's the real test of what the fan base looks like. But
I agree.
I feel really good about it right now.
I agree with what you said, and that's what I told people. I said, look, when this team has a bad year, that's the true test. But I agree with you what you said about some of the fans. Look, I'm not going to mention who it was, but a member of the media, I'm sitting up there in the media section, someone in the media says to me, why are there so many lines on the ice? I looked at this person like, are you kidding me? And then I think to myself, well, they never really watched professional hockey before. I want to read you a quote that owner Bill Foley said about the Vegas Golden Knights in August at the beginning of the year before the season started. He said, we don't have high expectations for this year. We're going to be competitive. If we're going to lose a game, we'd like to lose by a goal or two, not lose by 5 or 6. We don't want to be a walkover team. We want to be competitive. We want to be entertaining on the ice. We want to score some goals. I think they've accomplished that. What would you say?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember speaking to Bill Foley before we had the team and talking about, sort of what do we look at for this first year once it was established that we would have one. And he said, playoffs in 3, cup in 8. And I kind of smirked at him. I said, are you insane? I mean, that's just not how hockey works. And, I was hoping to go to games and see, how adorable. It was 4-0 and they scored 2 goals. Good for you guys. Only lost 4-2. And early on in the season, we knew that's not what it was going to look like. We were on an 8-1 run at home, and the energy in the building was electric, and the players themselves, the team as a whole, play for each other like no other team, maybe in sport, period. And I can't say that unequivocally, but I know for sure in hockey, there's no other team that plays for each other harder than this team does.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Daniel Negreanu, six-time WSOP champion. Oh, by the way, the WSOP right around the corner. Daniel, you made a little bit of headlines, certainly in the poker community, when you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the Vegas Golden Knights make the Stanley Cup Finals, there is no doubt you are going to miss a few weeks of the WSOP. Is that true?
Yes, at least that, and possibly more. I put down a $30,000 deposit for a $300,000 buy-in event at Super High Roller Bowl, which is an event that precedes the World Series of Poker, and it's a big one. It's on TV, on NBC, as we talked about before. And if we play Washington and have home ice, I'd be in a tough spot of maybe burning that $30,000 deposit. If we play Tampa, which looks more likely, first two on the road, I will miss some World Series events, but not the Super High Roller Bowl.
So that's how big of a fan you are, which I appreciate. You're not a bandwagon guy. You were there since day one, like you said, talking to Bill Foley before the season started. But that's still pretty big news. Obviously, you're one of the biggest faces in the game of poker. You have been for 15, 20 years. Somebody like you, one of the best in the world, saying that you are going to miss a good portion of the World Series of Poker to watch hockey. That doesn't happen really, not just in poker, but in sports or in general. I mean, that's kind of big news.
You know what else doesn't ever happen? You know, an expansion team makes the Stanley Cup Final.
That's true.
And the idea of me not being there for the first year when there are plenty of World Series events, there's about 60. So if I miss a week or two, I can still make a good push for Player of the Year and do quite well. But the idea of missing, there's only one first time. There's only one opportunity for this type of history to be made. And I don't want to be on the sidelines playing in a poker tournament trying to win money when I could be there and just be a part of the group and, you know, sort of the season ticket holders that I become friends with that sit next to me. I couldn't imagine missing that.
I certainly don't blame you. I mean, I would be doing the same thing. There's no question about it. But we'll get to poker in a second. But let me ask you a little bit more about this Knights team, because you know this team inside and out. And another thing I really appreciate about you, I listened to you on the post-game show with Frank and Clay, and I'll give a shout out to those guys because they're good guys. You are extremely knowledgeable when it comes to hockey, and I'm very impressed with that. And that's why another reason why I wanted to have you on. So when people are asked about this team, and what is the reasoning of why they're so successful? I come up with this conclusion. You tell me if you agree, and I want to hear your insight. It just seems to me that including the coach, including Turk, and all the guys on the team, they're all playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're coaching with a chip on their shoulder. Turk should have never been fired from Florida. That was a joke. And a lot of these guys were not protected, so they come over to this team, and they have one thing in common. I mean, there's been some acquisitions since then, but they have one thing in common in that they weren't protected, and they're in a new place now. And I think they've been playing all year with a chip on their shoulder, and I think it continues. Would you agree with that?
So I would say that, you know, there's so many variables that, you know, need to be put together to create what we've had here, and that's certainly one of them. The fact that all these guys were left from their other team and said, listen, you're not good enough to be here, essentially. So they have that common bond. Couple that with, you know, the tragedy that we faced here with 58 lives lost, and them having a chance to really get within the community. But aside from that, I think the bigger reason is a misread from other GMs about the trend in the NHL. You look at New Jersey, right? New Jersey was terrible last year. They went young and fast. They did quite well, way better than people expected because they went young and fast. We took players from teams with specific criteria, one being character guys, not big contracts, not big egos, but also speed, and work ethic. Size is out, if you will. Like 5-6 years ago, you don't see any first-round draft picks at 5'9". You look at some of the top scorers in the league right now, like a Marchessault or a Johnny Gaudreau or something along those lines. There's a lot of players under 6 foot that have the room now because of some rule changes. And I think George McPhee and Bill Foley have to get a lot of credit for seeing talent and seeing potential. William Karlsson had 6 goals last year.
Yeah, now he had like 45.
Yeah, 43.
Yeah.
They are changing the way that teams should build. You look at Edmonton right now. They have $15 million tied up in Connor McDavid, $13 million caught up in Leon Draisaitl. What's left? No. How are they going to build a team that way? So I really think that from the free agency perspective, GMs are going to be smart to look at things differently and say, you know what, maybe we don't want 1 or 2 guys that lead a team. We want a whole team of guys that all have each other's back.
It kind of has that Moneyball vibe, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one of my favorite movies with Brad Pitt, by the way. I love that movie.
Fantastic.
All right,
movie.
let's go to Marc-Andre Fleury here for a second. My assessment on him is obviously he's playing the best hockey of his career. He's been incredible. You see him smiling so much, and it just seems like he's a 10-year-old out there just having fun, enjoying the game of hockey. And he says how happy he is to be here and all these other things. I don't think he was extremely comfortable or happy with some of his past teams. And I think you play your best hockey. I think it's similar to poker in this sense, where if you're happy where you're at in your personal life and financially you're okay and you're relaxed, you're probably going to play your best poker if you're in the right mindset, right? You tell me. I see that correlation with Marc-Andre Fleury. I think he's happy to be here. He loves this city. He loves the fans. He's having fun out there, and he's playing his best hockey. Would you make that same correlation?
Oh, my God, there's so much to unwrap in what you just said, because I agree completely. But on top of that, think about it. If you were a two-time Stanley Cup champ or you've won a cup, all of a sudden there's a kid named Matt Murray who comes up. You play 2 rounds in the playoffs and play close to flawlessly last season. You have one game where you lose 2-1. After 2 weeks, now this little kid, Matt Murray's back, and he takes your spot. You don't play again. Now, listen, I don't care how humble Marc-Andre Fleury is, and I know that he is, and he's a good man. He's all about what's best for the team. You got to know that adds a little extra fire in him where he thinks, listen, I'm playing great. I'm a little surprised I'm being pulled. But when you look at a guy like him, and we talked about his humility, when our superstar is as humble as he is, what right or what sort of claim does anybody else in that team have to say, I'm the guy, right? So he sets the tone from the top. Gerard Gallant never, ever, craps on his players, if you will. He's always got their back.
Right.
These players love the coach. They love Fleury because of the way that he carries himself, and it really does trickle down. It always trickles down from the top. When a team isn't performing the way that it should, you always look at your superstars and your coaching and the top-end management, because that's the culture. That's where people look to in terms of what culture are we creating in this team and the organization. And
you're right, and they're so level-headed to the media, players and coaches. They'll always compliment the other team. Whereas when you look at the Winnipeg Jets and their goaltender, their goaltender said some things about Marc-Andre Fleury, basically saying, I'm not copying verbatim here, but basically saying, I'm better than Marc-Andre Fleury. That's kind of what he said a week and a half ago. Instead of just saying, well, I shouldn't worry about, who the other guy is between the pipes. I got to worry about my own game. And that's the kind of answer that the Knights would give. But it seems like some of these other teams and players, they're not answering these questions in the way that the Knights do. And I think that's what helps the Knights, because they're so level-headed, in my opinion, and they're always looking to that next game and that next challenge. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. And I think you're right. It starts with Gallant and the echelon all the way down.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I was actually having this discussion this morning about what Hellebuyck said, saying he likes his game better than Fleury's. And it's like, okay, well, would you like to look at statistics? Because
right.
They don't actually, back up what you're saying. But on top of that, you look at what this does for this team. They've been doubted all year long. At the expansion draft, people said this is going to be the worst team in history, potentially. Now, by December, we're first in division, they will fall. They won't make the playoffs. That's next 10. Now, you know what? This isn't a playoff team. They can't beat the Kings. Drew Doughty says, you know what? We'll be better than them by the end of the season. After game 1, we lost one game in Winnipeg.
Yep.
Every pundit says Cinderella story's over. One game. And Marchessault comes out and says, listen, we belong here. He showed up in game 2. And all year long, you're just fueling this team, because all they feel right now is, they feel this media need to be right. Like, everyone in the media wants to prove that they know hockey because this team's going to fail. And they keep proving them wrong, and they're just adding fuel to the fire. The pregame, if you go to the games, as I'm sure you have,
great.
You see on the billboard, what a garbage idea to put a team in the desert. This team's going to be terrible.
Right.
Just riles up the fans, riles up the team, and it's just fantastic.
Well, you were on the Jumbotron the other day, by the way, so you actually did a good job rallying up the fans, too. I have to give you credit for that.
That you can credit Tito's vodka for that one.
Nothing was better, by the way, than the Kings losing 4-0 and then playing that audio of Doughty in the next series saying, there's no question we're going to be better than Vegas by the end of the year. There's talking about sticking your foot in your mouth. That was awesome. But before, I want to get a couple more minutes here. And by the way, we're speaking with Daniel Negreanu, 6-time WSOP champion. I want to get your prediction on the Stanley Cup if they play either Washington or if they play Tampa Bay. But before I get to that, I got to ask you a few poker questions. I'm sure nobody's ever asked you about poker before, but I guess the cliche, I got to ask you a few poker questions. Who is the worst player, or I should say the most overrated player, in your opinion, in poker right now?
Well, I would, that really would depend on, if you're a poker insider or not. if you're thinking about like the sort of the spectrum of the average fan, it's definitely Phil Hellmuth, because he was a real champion. Oh, it really is. In the 80s and 90s, he played a style of poker that was very effective, but these kids today have surpassed him. So he's really completely outmatched against these kids, and he doesn't believe it. And his unwillingness, similar to what we're talking about with hockey, his unwillingness to say, you know what, let me take a look at my game and see what I need to improve on, actually hurts him, because he's not going to develop the way that he should.
You know what I love about Phil and you, yourself, Mike Matusow, those guys, is because you guys are so good for the game, not just because you guys are good players, but because you guys are personalities. Here's something that frustrates me, because I love poker probably just as much as you do even, and the TV ratings, ESPN, they've plummeted. Nobody watches the World Poker Tour anymore. And I think, and I know you're very vocal on this, the World Series of Poker, it's almost like they don't want table talk, or they want it to a minimum. And I think when you're heads up with another player, for the most part, you should be allowed to say whatever you want. You should be allowed to flip your cards over. People, and I'm not talking about the diehard poker fans. They're always going to watch. I'm talking about the casual fan of poker is not probably going to watch poker unless there's personalities at the table, there's table talk, right? I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think the WSOP needs to change that? Do you agree with that?
Well, let me say first and foremost, the World Series of Poker, I work with them pretty closely on this same issue you're talking about, and I think they've made good strides on the whole idea of table talk. We saw John Hess make the final table, a very colorful Brit who wore a fun jacket and was like great, and was an amateur and was fantastic. I think the bigger problem that is a much more difficult fix is who are the best players in the world today, right? In the old days, we had Phil Hellmuth and Sammy Farha and Devilfish and all these guys that were a little older, had a little character. They came from the streets, if you will. But today, it is a much more analytical, slower, robotic German, a lot of young German players, that they're there for the money. They're not there to entertain. And I think that is probably the key reason why it's a lot more difficult for poker fans to sort of attach themselves. Like Mike Matusow, right? You either love him or you hate him. Phil Hellmuth, you watch him. Sometimes you want to see him lose because you want to, laugh at him, or, you just love him because of his game. But, the newer generation is a little more analytical, and I think partly that hurts from a casual fan's perspective. Mm-hmm. It's great if you're a diehard because you're like watching these great plays. But right. Certainly I agree with you. The throwback era was a little more appealing to the mainstream. I
agree with you. A couple more quick questions for you, Daniel, and we appreciate your time. I guess one thing I noticed, I've been covering the World Series of Poker for almost 15 years. People that are very recognizable names, and I'm not going to mention those names, but a lot of them are broke. I see them at the WSOP asking to be backed. A lot of these professional poker players, and I'm sure you would agree, have very bad money management. And they're people like you and Phil Hellmuth. You mentioned a few. And I'm friends with Mike Matusow, and he'd be the first one to admit his money management is terrible. I mean, he does sports betting and all these other things, and it ruins him, because he's such a great player. And I know you would agree with that. What does that make of your sport or your game when you have so many recognizable guys that are just so bad with money management, and they play craps, or they sports bet, or do this or do that? Do you think that hurts your game at all? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's bigger than that, and I'm going to make a connection to hockey as well. So
great.
And we talked about the trend in the change in hockey. So a lot of guys, old school coaches who want to bang and hit, have an enforcer on the team and play slow and play big, great. That's fantastic. If it was 1985, it's not anymore. If you're not updating your game, and your ego is out of whack, where you think that the game that you have is better than what these young people are doing, you're missing out. If you're ignoring analytics and saying, silly stuff, we don't care about any of that, we just care about, hitting guys. That's similar in poker. A lot of players from the 2004 era that you mentioned, Mike being one of them, sort of have a little bit of a disdain and actually, frankly, a good amount of disrespect for the hard work these young guys are putting in. In addition to the hard work, they're putting it in with software that backs up what they, their processes. And the game is harder now than it's ever been. And if you're from that era and you think, I was great in 2004, I don't have to work hard anymore. Well, guess what? You're going to get passed by the young generation. And that's what happens. And that's what has happened. I've always been looking towards the future and saying, what do these young guys know that I don't? I've been in this game 20 years. I know a lot they don't. But what do they know that I don't? And how can I incorporate that to stay relevant in the game?
Last poker question for you. Howard Lederer, Chris Ferguson, you were one of the people that were very outspoken, and I appreciated that with that whole Ponzi scheme with Full Tilt Poker. If you had a chance to talk to them today, what would you say to them, and do you think they deserve to be playing in the World Series of Poker?
So I have spoken to Howard Lederer. He came to my house. He humbled himself. He apologized. He took ownership, really, for, being above his britches and obviously made some mistakes and stuff like that. And listen, I'm a very forgiving guy. I appreciate the fact that, listen, that doesn't condone any of the behavior or the things that happen. But listen, I'm a big believer in forgiveness. Chris Ferguson, on the other hand, oh my God, how can you forgive somebody that doesn't ask to be forgiven? Him showing up at the World Series of Poker, walking in and people saying, hey, you want to talk to us about what?
I just want to play poker.
Remorse.
Yeah, that's all he said, right?
No remorse whatsoever for what happened, despite the fact that he was heavily involved. That shocked me a little bit, and that I was just like, that's brazen. That's just like a big middle finger to the poker community. Now, having said that, I think that both should be allowed to play. They haven't cheated in poker, so there's a lot of people who have done bad things that play at the World Series of Poker. And if we had a moral sort of compass on, listen, whether or not you pass this test, you play a tournament. Have you ever cheated on your wife? Have you ever cheated on your taxes? There'd be about 4 people in the tournament. So we can't go that far.
That's a good point. Well, I appreciate you answering those poker questions. I think those are all important issues, and you're at the forefront of it. And you're again, something that I respect about you is you're very outspoken. You're not afraid to speak your mind. I like that about you. All right, last question, Danny, and we really appreciate your time coming on. Give me a prediction here. Now, I agree with you. I think that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to play Tampa Bay. I hope that's not the case because I think it's better, and I'm sure you would agree, if they played Washington. And I'd love to see Ovechkin a few more times. That'd be a steal to be able to watch him in the T-Mobile again. But give me your prediction on this. The gambling lines already came out, by the way. I don't know if you saw it. Tampa Bay, if they play the Vegas Golden Knights, they're about minus 150 to win 100. And the Knights would actually be favored against Washington, and I believe they would have home ice advantage. And the Knights would be a favorite at minus 125. What do you think about those odds? Since you're predicting all these scores, give us some help here for some of the people that are listening. What do you think is going to happen in the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yeah, well, actually, the odds that I saw had, if Vegas was home to Washington, was minus 140.
Oh, wow.
125, okay. I'm hammering for sure. So if we look at the series, right? Tampa's 3-2. I do believe Washington's going to win Game 6. I think it's going to go 7. The winner there, we'll see how Game 6 goes, depending on injuries and whatnot. But I do think that's going to go 7, which bodes well for Vegas. And on top of that, when we played either of these teams, I think that the style of game we want to play, a very high forechecking game where we really put a lot of pressure on the defense and play an up-tempo game, I think that both of these teams like to play that style to some degree, except we do it better. Much like San Jose. They tried sort of to play that open style. Winnipeg did as well, which was really surprising. Doesn't bode well. They're playing into our bread and butter. The toughest matchup, despite the fact that it was 4-0 in the series, was against the Kings, actually, because they really, did what they were supposed to do, which was bang us around and try to clog up the middle. So I think that it will be a highly skillful, final no matter who we play. It'll be a fun series to watch. But I do think that I'm excited about having played either of them because I was much more worried about Winnipeg or Nashville than I am about Tampa and Washington. So I actually think we're going to do, drum roll please, hashtag Cup and One.
I love it. I love it, man. Danny, if you ever decide to take a break from poker, which I don't think you ever should, but if you do, I think you should be an NHL analyst. I'm serious, by the way. You'd be very good at it.
I would pay. I would actually pay them to put me on because I love it more than poker. I swear, it's my passion. It has been. I spend 4,000 hours a year on it, and I love it.
And you're great at it, and we appreciate your time. And promise me this, man, if they win the Cup, we got to have you on again.
Absolutely, guaranteed.
Right. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel.
You got it.
All right, that's Daniel Negreanu, 6-time WSOP champion. I'm kind of blown away at his knowledge, man.
Oh, it's insane.
He's so smart. Obviously, great poker player, intelligent, but his analyzing the NHL is just off the charts, man.
He's just a very, very intelligent guy. Whether it's poker, whether it's social communication, whether it's hockey, it doesn't make a difference. He just knows his stuff.
Man, unbelievable. Well, let me give out the number real quick, and then we're going to take a quick break. The number to call in if you want to talk Vegas Golden Knights, 257-5396. Area code 702, of course, 257-5396 if you want to talk to us about the Vegas Golden Knights and talk to us about that Danny Negreanu interview. Anything you want to talk about in regards to the Knights, we'd love to talk to you about it. Again, 257-5396 if you want to call in. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take, brought to you by the Wager Fund.
Wednesday after Law & Order, SVU on NBC. It can bring some sweet excitement on your next trip on the I-15. News 3 takes you to a desert destination in the middle of the desert. The sugary pit stop you'll be craving every time you hit the road. It all starts with top stories from Jim Snyder and Marie Mortera and your Weather Authority forecast from Kevin Janicek. Plus, Sweet Spot. Wednesday on News 3 live at 11, leading the way in Las Vegas.
65 years of good mornings. 65 years of putting you closely in touch with the world we live in. 65 years of notable guests from every field of human endeavor. As today celebrates 65 years on air, we hope to keep giving you more reasons to love today and to stay with us for a long time. Until tomorrow, this is Today.
News 3 Today. The Today Show. Get the news you need to start your day.
Many people consider sports betting as an investment, but like any investment, to be good at it, you need to put in lots of effort and time most of us don't have. Let the pros take care of that with the Wager Fund, an entity wagering company. It's perfectly legal, run by professional handicappers with a proven track record. It's simple, trustworthy, and fun. You can be in Vegas or anywhere in the country. We have skin in the game, and our money is always wagered with yours. We don't get paid unless we win. For more details, check out our website, thewagerfund.com, or give us a call at 888-328-7835. That's 888-328-7835. The Wager Fund.
Your mission was to keep us safe. Our mission is to tell you how much that means to us. Centennial Toyota would like to thank all military and reserve personnel for your courage, your selflessness, and your sacrifice. Announcing Operation Thank You. Now through Memorial Day weekend, get huge savings on hundreds of new Camrys, Corollas, Prius, RAV4s, Highlanders, Siennas, Tundras, and Tacomas. Right now, you can lease a brand new 2018 Toyota RAV4 for only $189 a month. That's the top-selling Toyota RAV4, now just $189 a month. Get the Toyota you want at a great price. Don't miss Centennial Toyota's Operation Thank You. Conveniently located on North US 95 in the 215 Beltway. Or visit us at CentennialToyota.com. See dealer for details on approved credit. Example, model 4430. Lease for $189 per month for 36 months. $4,079 due at signing. Zero security. Excludes taxes, title, and $499 dealer fees. Offer expires 5/31/18.
Do you really have to pay $100 for a $100 bottle of wine? I say no, you don't, and it's my business to prove it. I'm Cameron Hughes. My company, Cameron Hughes Wine, partners with boutique wineries from around the globe, selling their wines directly to you at amazing savings. How amazing? That $80 bottle of wine, just $30 from us, guys. $50 Pinot from your local wine shop, just $20 from us. We're not making this up, folks. Get more, pay less at Cameron Hughes Wine. Guaranteed. I've been doing this for 17 years now, folks. Nobody brings you real, high-quality boutique wines better than chwine.com. My name is on every label for a reason. My promise is solid. You'll love this wine. Now, don't take my word for it. Visit our website and read the reviews from customers and top wine critics as well. To get you started, we'd like to offer you free shipping on a 3-bottle order. Just visit chwine.com and use promo code 2929 at checkout. Remember, we guarantee every bottle of wine we sell, so visit chwine.com today and enter code 2929. That's chwine.com, promo code 2929.
The Wager Fund. Expert wagering at a low cost.
All the news you need whenever you want. Keep up to date 24/7 at KDWN.com or on your KDWN app. Available in the App Store on iTunes or Google Play.
All right. Welcome back. It is The Vegas Take, brought to you by the Wager Fund. Sharp and Shapiro just had Danny Negreanu on, and JD, I know you're a big poker guy. That was fun talking to him.
It was a great interview.
Yeah, that was
did a
fun.
really good job.
That was fun. Obviously, we're talking Vegas Golden Knights making the Stanley Cup Finals, which is, I have to pinch myself. I still cannot believe that they are 4 games away from winning it all. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think this would be the biggest story in the history of sports if the Knights win the Stanley Cup?
If they take it down, I don't see how it couldn't be considered. I'm not saying it'll be absolutely guaranteed the biggest, but it'll be up there.
I want to give the number out because I want to know what you guys think out there. If the Knights win the Stanley Cup, do you think it's the biggest story in sports history? Or now, some people are saying it already is the biggest, in sports history because they won the Western Conference. Give us a call at 257-5396. Again, that number to call in if you want to be a part of the program right now, 257-5396. Do you think that this is the biggest story in sports history of them just winning the Western Conference Finals. I think if they had just made the playoffs, you make an argument that, this is a 30 for 30 in the making. But the fact that they are in the Stanley Cup Finals, the fact that they're 4 games away, it's, again, like what Daniel said, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before, and we'll probably never see anything like it again in our lifetime. You could compare it to the Miracle on Ice, but the thing about the Miracle on Ice is that was one game. This is an entire season, right? So, I mean, this is a different scenario. I can't even begin to fathom what the T-Mobile Arena is going to be like in a few weeks or a week and a half, whenever the Cup Finals start. That atmosphere is going to be, I mean, it's been electric all year, but we're talking about the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, it's incredible to me, and, it's close to my heart because, and I've said this story before on the air. October 1st, the night of that horrible tragedy and the shooting, I was asked to go to that concert, and instead I went to a Vegas Golden Knights preseason hockey game. And if I didn't go to that hockey game, if not for the Vegas Golden Knights, I don't know if I'd be here. That's why it's personal to me, and it should be personal to a lot of other people out there, the way this community has come together, and I think the Knights have really helped that. They've helped the healing process. So, I'm just really happy for this team, this franchise, and a lot of good people. Another huge story, JD, making a segue here, a story that we haven't talked about because last week we were on the air on Sunday, and then the next day, all of a sudden, the Supreme Court makes a ruling and says, oh, yeah, well, you know what? That's unconstitutional, that, not allowing states to make their own decisions on sports betting, basically, and basically giving every state the opportunity to place to legalize sports betting. What was your first reaction when you heard about the ruling last week?
About time. There's so much tax revenue that the government has been missing out on over the last 30, 40 years. They estimated that there's about $180 billion bet in the United States right now.
Wow. And
$5 billion of that takes place in Nevada. So that means there's almost $180 billion being bet illegally in other states. It's going to change. It's going to change a lot about sports. You're gonna see advertising everywhere you go. You're going to see there's going to be shows. There's going to be TV programs. It's going to it's a huge thing for sports that this was legalized the way it was, and it's a matter of the fact of if a state wants sports betting, they can go after it, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
it's huge.
So I think how it will affect Vegas, very minor. Here's what I mean by that. I would say the Super Bowl and March Madness, a lot of people come out here, to place bets, but I think they also come out here not necessarily for the sports betting, but just to come out here for the parties. And we throw the best parties in Las Vegas, whether it's a Vegas Golden Knights, party when they're playing a game on the road, or the Super Bowl party, or the way March Madness works here in Las Vegas. So will it hurt tourism a little bit? Maybe. But as far as, oh, my God, the action in Vegas, everything's going to change. First of all, if you really wanted to place a sports bet in New York or wherever, or in Atlantic City, you'll find a way to do it. Now, take it will be illegal. It probably will be offshore, or it will be with a bookie. But if you really want to bet on a game, my point is you're doing it anyway. People are going to come out to Vegas because it's the gambling mecca of the world, but you also got, so many other things to do here, and I don't think it's going to hurt Vegas that much. Would you agree with that?
I think Vegas will feel it a little bit, but it's not going to be as aggressive as people are letting on. No. Right. I mean, Vegas is still Vegas. You come here because you want to have a fantastic time. And, I mean, when people think betting sports, they think of Las Vegas. I don't see that changing at all.
Yeah. So when you look at all these different books, and I know that West Virginia is going to be starting up here in a few weeks. I think Monmouth Racetrack will probably be the first one, if I'm not mistaken, right? I would imagine it's a way to take advantage of some of these books because they don't necessarily have the experience that these Vegas books have. Am I right on that?
They're going to make a lot of mistakes to start. I think a lot of books are going to lose money to very, very strong handicappers. The real interesting thing that's going to take place is, say you're in Boston and Massachusetts legalizes sports betting. Well, the Patriots line in Boston will be 3 points further to the right or to the left of the line in Vegas, or the line in California, or the line in Michigan, or the line in Florida. It doesn't make a difference. There's going to be a massive deviation that legitimate sharps will have a chance to take advantage of, and that's never been the case before.
You know what I'm sick of? Well, I'm sick of a lot of things, but the NFL has been against the sports gambling and against anti-Vegas for years. And then all of a sudden, when the Supreme Court ruling comes out on Monday, they say, okay, we're fine with it now. We just want our integrity fee. go take a flying you-know-what. I hope they don't get any integrity fees. I hope none of these sports get integrity fees. And Mark Cuban said it best, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He said, if you're an owner of a franchise, you just doubled what you have. You're going to double in revenue based on the TV ratings and people going to games. Bettors are going to be watching more than ever. The ratings are going to go up in most sports. And yet they want an integrity fee. And what about Major League Baseball? And I go on tangents sometimes on this. Forgive me, JD. But Major League Baseball turns a blind eye towards the steroid issue for many, many years. Okay? And are they the poster child for integrity? Now they're going to talk about integrity? It bothers me because I don't want to hear these professional franchises, these people, these executives talk about integrity when all they really want is money.
Yeah, that's how it goes. They make the excuse that, well, we want this game to be, perfectly clean, no issues, nobody getting paid off to do whatever they're doing, and obviously, in the end, it's all about money, of course. And I actually think that with sports betting being legalized and the media having the exposure and the coverage on sports, on the lines, on exactly what's taking place, you're going to, if there was anything going on behind the scenes, that's going to stop because there'll be too much, the public will be seeing everything on the national spotlight as far as when something like that takes place. It's going to be a massive story will come out about it. And that wasn't the case before either. So I think it'll actually add to the integrity of the game by having legalized sports betting.
And I want to open up the phone lines, too, for anyone out there who wants to chime in on this. Do you think that the legalization of sports betting, or at least letting states decide, and I think most people project within 5 years there'll be at least 30 more states that will have legalized sports betting. Do you think that the legalization of sports betting throughout the country will hurt the integrity of these professional sports? The number to call if you want to chime in on this, 257-5396. Again, that number to call is 257-5396. What people don't really understand, some people, JD, is that with the legalization of sports betting, it is good. These games are going to be monitored more than ever. Okay, it's going to be harder to fix a game now than it was 20 or 30 years ago. And why is it that people find that so difficult to understand? I just don't get it.
Because they're told not to. Because they're being led to believe that it's going to be much more difficult. No, it'll absolutely make it significantly more difficult to fix a game with it being monitored to the extent that we're talking about monitoring it. There's just no way around that. So.
It wasn't that long ago that you couldn't bet on a UNLV basketball game, okay? And then when they allowed it in Las Vegas sports books, everyone was saying, well, not everyone, but a lot of people were saying, that the fix is going to be in, it's going to corrupt, Las Vegas UNLV athletics. Has anything happened? No. I know we had that situation years ago when you couldn't bet when Jerry Tarkanian was coaching the team, and there were some issues, but you couldn't bet on games back then, so that had nothing to do with it as far as from a Vegas standpoint. I don't think that we're going to run into many issues. Look, you had an NBA official, okay? You had Tim Dennehy, an NBA official that was, corrupt. And that had nothing to do with legal sports betting. It had to do with illegal sports betting. The fact that this is monitored now, who are you stealing money from, or who are you trying to steal money from? It is the sports books. And if they see some out-of-whack bets, if they see bets going one direction or huge bets going one way, it is immediately going to raise eyebrows, and people are going to get to the bottom of it.
And there's going to be legal repercussions to it.
Yeah.
In the states that it's legal.
There's no doubt about it. I believe we got a phone call, so why don't we go straight to the phones, and let's go to Randall. Randall, thank you for calling into the Vegas Take, and come on and call in. Randall?
Hi.
How you doing, Randall?
How you guys? Doing really good, you guys. I'm so excited that the Knights won. I cannot believe it. And if you wanted to answer on sports betting, absolutely. Let the states do it. Let the states make the rules.
Do you think it'll... Go ahead, Randall.
Should be that way. That should be that way for everything.
Do you think it'll hurt...
Government should be involved.
Do you think it'll hurt the integrity of any of these sports?
Absolutely not. Look what they said about the hockey and the basketball moving down here.
I agree.
Come on.
Yeah, have you bet... a question. Obviously, you're a Vegas Knights fan. Have you actually placed a bet on the Knights and gone to a game? And what's that experience like for you?
I went to the same game I have a friend that has season tickets. He took me to the October 1 game just like you, and we were parked right next to it. And it was, after getting home, finding out what happened, it was absolutely terrible. But I'm a Sharks fan. I grew up in the Bay Area. I went to I had season tickets to the inaugural season at the Cow Palace, and I moved down here 25 years ago. I can't believe that I had to move down here to get a championship team. I've been waiting for the Sharks to make it.
You got to move here for a lot of things, that's for sure.
But no, it's not going to have anything to do with it. Let them do whatever they want, and it's not going to hurt the town at all. Come on, this place is exploding.
I agree. Randall, I appreciate the call, my man. Thanks for listening.
Thanks,
Calling
Randall.
anytime. Good call. Thanks, Randall.
Okay, bye-bye.
I agree with him. I think we're all in agreement here. And, by the way, the number to call in if you want to be a part of the program, 257-5396. 257-5396. We're talking Vegas Golden Knights hockey. They were only 500-1 to win the Stanley Cup when they first opened up, and now they're 4 games away from that. And we're also talking about the integrity of sports and the integrity, being a legalized sports gambling or sports betting, I should say, and we'll probably see plenty of states in 2 weeks, right? We're going to see Monmouth Racetrack have sports betting.
Yeah, they're talking about Mississippi, West Virginia, New Jersey, Delaware, and a few other states before football season, which will be a really, really big deal.
You know how much fun, here's something, I go to a lot of sporting events, and at times I bet on sports. I've been known to bet on a sports wager here and there.
Couple.
I've even gone to the golf tournament here and made some wagers on one player versus another, and I watch him play 18 holes, and it's so much fun. It makes it a lot more fun, okay? Obviously, if I go to a Vegas Golden Knights game, I don't care if I'm a member of the media or not. I absolutely want the Knights to win, okay? And if you have a wager on the Knights, it makes it even more fun. I mean, you can make a few bucks. Go to a boring game. I don't care what kind of game it is, if it's a regular season Major League Baseball game or if it's, 2 bad teams, okay? Throw $20 on the game with your buddies or something. It makes the experience, in my opinion, more enjoyable. It'll put more people in the seats. It'll have more people watching the games. What is the negative? Yes, I know you could say, well, gambling, could get out of control. Well, it's the same thing with casinos or drinking or anything else, okay? I don't want to have to pay the price for irresponsible people that don't know what they're doing with their money, It's just like alcohol, right? Why am I not allowed to get a drink, because you are irresponsible and you don't know how much you can or can't drink? To me, it's the same thing with gambling and sports betting.
I think the negative potentially is people that lose. They lose a lot, but if you lose a lot and you're not good at sports betting, then you find a great handicapper and your problems are solved at that point.
And I would say that would definitely be you, by the way. This guy is a very good handicapper. He's very modest, though, kind of like our coach for the Vegas Golden Knights, Gallant. He doesn't like taking a lot of credit, but JD, you are an excellent handicapper. You've made me a lot of money. I'll say that.
Thank you, Shapiro. I appreciate that.
Yes. Well, it's true. And, of course, he is running the company, The Wager Fund. And if you're more information on that, definitely check out that website, thewagerfund.com. But getting back to the sports betting issue, there are so many sports books out there in Vegas, and a lot of professional sports handicappers are trying to look for the best line. They call it shopping for the best number. Imagine how much shopping you could do. And here's what I say. Say, you're trying to get a bargain for the best deal on, let's just say, a watch. And the only place you can legally buy a watch is in Las Vegas. And you've got about 20 or 30 different vendors that are selling watches. Well, now imagine if they just said, well, we're just going to give you a couple thousand more vendors throughout the country. Don't you think you do a little bit more shopping? Isn't that the way it's going to work?
Yes, it'll work that way.
I mean, it's crazy how you can take advantage of one line. Let's just say the Rams are -8 in Vegas, and then you go to some small little casino in Mississippi, and it's -6. Now, I would imagine a lot of these casinos are going to be in cahoots with one another, and a lot of these lines are going to open up in a similar place, but you never know. You never know. You might be able to take advantage of a line somewhere across the country. All I know is I love Las Vegas, okay? I love being able to go to a T-Mobile Arena, to go to a hockey game, and step outside 100 feet away and place a bet on the game. I love it. It's fun. And the fact that you might be able to do that, well, you are going to be able to do that eventually in most states in this country, to me, is awesome. And I think it's good for everybody.
I think it's cool that you'll be able to go to a game in a different state, and if you make a bet on that team and you win, it's a decent-sized bet, you can pay for your trip with betting on the team of the game that you just watched. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and I think the experience is great. And I'm tired of these people, a lot of these politicians that are anti-gambling, that are anti-this and anti-that. Not to get too much political, but, John McCain, who I respect a lot as a war hero, but I disagree with his stance on gambling. And I remember he came to Vegas when he was running for president, and I asked him about that. And his response was no, he's against it. He's against legalizing sports gambling. And he was against casinos even opening up all over the place. And then the guy is sitting in Congress, and I'm not trying to knock the guy, but he was playing online poker on his cell phone at a congressional meeting. Now, I don't know if it was for real money or not, but can you say the word hypocrite? I mean, these politicians that didn't want, marijuana to be legal, right? And many of them still don't. And these politicians that don't want gambling to be legal throughout the country, they're hypocrites in my opinion, because when there's money involved and when they get a piece of the pie, all of a sudden they change their tune, just like the NFL. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it because you're not getting a piece of the pie, so you want to inconvenience others that want the same as most Americans want. I mean, are there really everyday folks out there that don't want sports betting legalized everywhere? I mean, give us a call at 257-5396 if you're one of those people, because I'd love to find out why. But I can't think of really too many negatives in this whole situation. I just can't. And you being a professional sports handicapper, obviously you love it. It's a great thing. And I think this will get the casual sports bettor, a guy that's with his friends. Hey, I got $20. Let's put $20 on, the Rays tonight. I think that's where it's going to get a lot of these casual people, right? Because if you're a heavy gambler, you're finding a way to place these bets anyway. That's fair to say, right?
Right.
But, man, growing up in Connecticut, I grew up in Connecticut where we have a few casinos out there, but sports betting was never legal. I can't imagine how much fun that would have been as a 21, 22-year-old kid in college. It might have been a little dangerous for me back then. But going up to a kiosk, I don't know, at a bar or something, and placing a legal sports bet on a UConn Huskies basketball game. I can't imagine how much fun that would have been back then, and I think that the Supreme Court had the correct ruling. My question is, why did it take so long? Why?
Well, was passed in 1992. New Jersey had been trying to get it struck down for almost 20 years, and it finally made the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Even then, it's been discussed for the last year as potentially coming out. I mean, it was supposed to be the ruling was supposed to take place early March, early April, late April. It took a long time because there is a taboo element to it, and people do think you still have those group of people who do think that it is a very bad thing. It can lead to addiction. You could lose a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's still very real in the United States, as of right now. But the fact of the matter is, and the leagues, they won't say this, but it's true. You're not watching a game for a team that you don't have a direct connection to in a different state, or you're not going to a game in a different state, or if you're a traveling fan, unless you're just a diehard fan, you're not that interested in the team in the game that you're watching unless you've got something on that game. And I truly believe that a lot of the rating, like we'll say 45-50% of viewership for the NFL, for MLB, for NBA, is people that are definitely.
There's a stat that came out
betting on sports.
Stat came out not that long ago. They said over 60% of people watching an NFL game have some sort of action on the game.
I believe that 100%.
So the hypocritical NFL, against gambling for God knows how long. They quickly change their tune as long as there's money involved. And, I guess I shouldn't be surprised on that.
And how much did they cost themselves over the last 5 to 10 years by not having gambling?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in a couple of years when the Raiders are here, and by the way, KDWN, the flagship for the Raiders. I had to put that in there. I know our producer, Denise, is happy. I didn't need a note from her today. I remembered that on my own. I'm being a big boy today. But anyway, the Raiders coming to town, how many people in that stadium are going to have action on the game? Well, look at all the other arenas out there. There's going to be a lot of people with action. There already are people with action on those games, Or when I sometimes when I take a trip and I go catch a game, I actually place a bet or have somebody place a bet for me in Las Vegas when I'm at that game. Well, I'm not going to have to do that anymore eventually, which is incredible. But but look, many parts of Europe you can do this. All right, you can go see Wimbledon and place a bet on a tennis match right there, right in the arena. They let you do it. So if it's legal there. That's my question. if it's legal in Nevada, why did it take so long for it to be legal everywhere else? That's what really doesn't make sense to me. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier about money. As long as they have a piece of the pie, they'll be happy. Stop it with this BS about integrity of the game. If something happens, there's not a better chance it's going to happen now than it was years ago. You're not going to see somebody strike out on purpose. It's just I just don't see that happening. I know the whole Pete Rose issue is ridiculous too, but I just don't see that happening in today's game. I mean, do you? I just don't see it happening.
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening. It is fun, though, when I go watch some of these games, right? I'm at watching the Pac-12 tournament in March here. Or actually, it was at T-Mobile. T-Mobile for the Pac-12 tournament. And I see a guy hit a meaningless three, and his team loses by 12 or something. I think it was against UCLA. I might be wrong. And I see two people to my right just getting up, going nuts, cheering. The guy hit a meaningless three, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I think I know why. A guy hit a meaningless shot, at the buzzer, and they covered the spread. The guy had a couple grand on the game. And I said, man, only in Vegas would that happen. And, well, that's not going to be the case anymore. You're going to see a lot of people cheering, yelling, screaming for a team to either cover the spread, or get to that total of the over-under. And I like it, actually. I think it's funny, and I don't think it's going to be corrupt. I don't think it's going to lead to corruption. I think everything will be just fine, and I think everything is monitored. I know. Everything is monitored at all these sports books, and I don't think we have too much to worry about.
No, the states can make their own decisions. If a state needs revenue, it'll allow someone with X amount of dollars to back the bets to basically take their friends or take their peers' bets.
No doubt.
If a state is doing decent financially, they'll probably have require like a brick and mortar, obviously with a tax to pay their taxes as well, but like a brick and mortar and a location and an LLC. And if a state is doing very, very well, they'll just limit it to only casinos. Right. Actually, a few days ago, Ohio has been talking about a law where they would only legalize it in small bars, which I think is genius. Because, I mean, imagine what type, how those sports bars, those small sports bars.
They're going to make so much money. They're just business alone.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Well, JD, this has been a fun show. I definitely want to thank Danny Negreanu for coming in, and I want everyone to check out your website, thewagerfund.com, and also our Twitter account at The Vegas Take. We're headed to a pretty cool event, actually, right after the show. We're going to see Lon Kruger and the Coaches versus Cancer event, which is at the MGM Grand. Many of the college coaches throughout the country will be there tonight, so honored and privileged to be able to be there with you. And God, Lon Kruger has done so much for this city and so much for cancer research, and it's just a great event. So happy to be there. Next week, we're going to have some fun guests. One guest I know is confirmed. There's a local bunny ranch, not that local, it's about an hour from here, that is offering the Vegas Golden Knights, I'm not making this up, folks, a sex party free of charge if the Knights win the Stanley Cup. I'm not making this up. It's true. So we'll have the one of the owners of that bunny ranch come on, because I just think it's hilarious. Only in Vegas would that happen. And of course, we're going to go over all the NBA action. We got the NBA playoffs in full swing. Celtics down 2-1 to Cleveland, and we got the Golden State-Houston game going on right now. That series is tied 1-1. So we'll get to that and much, much more, JD. It's been a fun show. I appreciate you coming on very much. And check us out at thevegastake.com and thewagerfund.com. And we will see you next week, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hannity, Levin, AM 720, KDWN Las Vegas, KKLZ HD2 Las Vegas, a Beasley Media Group station. Group station. Group station. Group station. Group station. Group station. Group station.